Kid raises his arm in the middle of class and he goes, "Excuse me, ma'am, may I leave? My brain is full." Is anybody feeling like their brain's full yet? Okay. All right. I remember when I went out for action certification, it was 10 consecutive days and 10 to 12-hour days every day. And you're starting at 6 in the morning for volleyball was the start of the day. But you would see times, I lost half a day. I remember the instructor went up and he said, "Okay, now do you remember when we talked about such and such?" And I went, "We spent 3 hours on the subject and I had nothing left." And I know other people I was looking around, they had no clue what he was talking about. I mean, so I understand that there's a lot of content in a short period of time. But we're going down on the easier stuff now. We're out of the numbers range. So I saved some of the other things like hiring for the back end. We want to hire for impact and retention. Anybody have an idea of how much a bad hire costs us? Yes.
I do, because I just went through this within the last 3 weeks.
How much did it cost you, do you think?
We're looking at between wages, what I guess we call it severance package. We're looking somewhere in the line of about $4,000 to $5,000 just in their salary stuff. What we paid them over the past 60 days was probably another $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. Not to mention all the work that didn't get complete because they were an underperformer. So now we're finding that we have to go back and redo work.
Yeah.
So that costs enough in time and labor going back out. So
Brutal, right?
It's a killer.
I went on a calculator. Kathy, I'm not sure if it's the one you sent me or an ADP one. And I put in some information like the salary of the person, they factor in ads and all our time interviewing and training. And they calculated that I think in a 90-day period, if a hire doesn't work out on a $40,000 person, it costs you $53,000 when all is said and done. So it's a whopper, right? I mean, that's killer. But what's worse than an underperformer quitting and leaving you short-handed? What's worse than that? Anybody think of anything? Them staying. Right? Isn't it? Them staying and draining you of all your energy and time. It's brutal. Now, I'm going to confess. I will confess and I won't ask you to. At the company that I was referencing, the first part of my career, I considered myself a master at fighting off the resignation. You know that letter where they walk in and they drop it on you and come in and you're like, "Oh, I can't afford to lose them." The second part of my career, I learned that you don't want to be fighting off the resignations all the time. It's a sign of weakness. You know, there's certain people that you want to keep and you're going to go to the mat, and there's other times where you're just doing yourself and your team a disservice, and they're looking at you thinking, how can't they see this? I've had so many times that people will come in afterwards and say, "I was wondering when you get around to it." So let's talk about some steps in hiring. Written job description or positional contract, really key. With clearly defined responsibilities, include the KPIs that you're going to measure them on. So is it average order, conversion rate, sales, profitability? What are those expectations there? How about conduct expectations, the culture? What are the rules of the game that we have? Who thinks they have a really strong written job description or positional contract? Anybody? All right. We have Scott, and we have our JFC in the back. I'd say seek out people who have a good one, because starting from scratch is tough. It's really tough. That's one of the things I try to help my clients with, is working through positional contracts and making sure that they're clear on what the expectations are so that you can measure against them. When I was looking to bring on a personal assistant, I asked another coach who had one for his positional contract. You should have seen this thing. 3 pages, detailed to the hilt. It was probably the best I've ever seen. This guy had every base covered, every expectation. How many articles she was supposed to get in for a month, how many clients or leads, just everything in there. It was awesome. There wasn't going to be much room for, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do this. So positional contract is key. 2, always be hiring. We probably all know this, that we should be looking in our regular daily circles for people who impress us. Because be honest, how often are you impressed with service? Not often, right? It doesn't happen very often. I was in a pizza shop the other day, out in the middle of nowhere. I was going to a funeral, I hadn't been in this area, I had to eat. So I go into the pizza shop, it looks fine. 3 things stood out. I walked in, and I wasn't sure where the ordering line was. The person at the front said, "Sir, I can help you here." Just go right over there. She helps me. Then I'm done eating. The pizza was okay. Wasn't fantastic and wasn't horrible. I go up and I'm looking for, that had some real silverware. I wasn't sure where to put it. She goes, "Sir, I can help you with that." I was like, am I in the real world here? Who's offering this kind of service? So she takes it. She says, I had a real cup. She gave me a real cup. And I had been thinking, man, I wish I could take this with me. She goes, "Sir, I see you have more than half left in your cup. Could I get you a to-go cup?" I was like, this is crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. How many times does that happen? So if I was in that area, I'd be recruiting her because she just demonstrated everything I want my clients to receive. So always be hiring. Have contingency plans. Anybody ever felt they were held hostage because they didn't have a great performer but they didn't have a good replacement? Anyone? Yeah. Don't be held hostage. A lot of times we'll find when it's not the right position for them and we let them go, we feel a lot better and we've done them a favor because there may be a job that they're going to be a lot better at. And it's going to help the organization overall. So always be hiring. Systematic interviewing process. Let me share with you the interviewing process that I used and some of the keys for that. We couldn't pay a ton in base. So back then, let's say in the mid-2000s, base might be 30 to 40. Plus some bonus potential. If you're really good, you can make 70 or 80, which isn't bad for an inside job. But we'd get all these resumes, and we'd have some very definitive things that if it showed up on the resume, out. There's some absolutes that we would not, we just had some things, I call them kill shots, that if this showed up, bye-bye. Some things like job history weren't real attractive to us, like if they were moving jobs a lot, I want to know parts of that. But we had very specific guidelines. Always did a phone interview. I didn't want to bring somebody in to waste my time where I couldn't escape. So we do a phone interview and we'd have some very specific questions in there to weed people out. I'd have them go through the resume and I'd ask them questions about why they left this job, things about their boss. I want to see, were they above the line or were they below the line? You notice the last 3 jobs, well, my boss really didn't give me the recognition I deserved, or they kept changing the pay plan on me. You know, once or twice maybe, but not always. It can't always be somebody else. Face-to-face interview. Again, they didn't get there. We're weeding them down. When they got there, a series of questions that were going to be knockouts. And I'll give you a couple of the questions that I used to use, but everything was designed to really funnel it down fast. Anybody use an intelligence test now? Good. What do you use?
We pulled a questionnaire that we found through one of our technical sites for when we're interviewing tech. They had a questionnaire in there that is both basic knowledge test for computers and networks going up to higher skill level.
Okay.
So it's not something that they take online, but it is a series of questions that we can ask them to gauge where they're at.
Good. When I was hiring then, using JFC for placement, I would ask them to do a Wonderlic on the candidates before they come in. Anybody hear about the Wonderlic score? Most of the times you hear it associated with the NFL draft. they give these guys this test and they score a certain amount, and offensive linemen score the highest for some reason, and usually quarterbacks. But we found that that was such a key indicator because of the training that was involved, and time after time after time, if we violate, we would have numbers, and we'd say, okay, we're not talking to anybody below this or this. The times where we tried to make an exception, oh, death defying, just death defying. They were great people. They couldn't learn the stuff. It'd be spilling out their ears as we were training. You could just see it flying out their ears, and they'd never make it.
Is it like a comprehensive test?
It's kind of like, it says, here's a sequence of numbers. What's the next number? Here's 4 words. What doesn't belong? It's a pretty basic intelligence test, but we just knew that to be a sales rep, you had to score over 25. To be a customer service rep, you had to score over 20 or something like that. But we talked about how expensive, when you start thinking, when we go through here and you think, oh my gosh, why do I want to do all that? Just remember that $50,000 figure I threw out there. So Wonderlic test was huge.
Can you get that online?
Probably can get it online. I would use it for sure. The team interview, strongly suggest having a couple team members interview the person. And I would say, I would do this, I'd say, look, you're going to talk to my team. I've given them express permission to answer any question you have about the organization, any question you have about me, what they don't like, they're free to share everything, so ask. I wanted to make sure they got everything they needed to know to make a good decision. And I told my team, tell them whatever, if you don't like me about this, tell them. Whatever it is, you just say. Because I wasn't always the most popular. Role play. Who role plays now as part of their interviewing process? Great, great. What'd you find?
Some people just, they shudder up, or they don't know how to speak properly, or they're stumbling, they're looking away, they don't have confidence in themselves.
What'd you find?
I've just been on the other end, and I've had to role play because I am the salesperson, and it is exactly like that. You freeze up because you don't know what they're expecting out of you, so you have to kind of remember what you would normally do, base it off of that. I thought it was awesome, but it puts you out of your element, so you're forced to really see what the person can do.
Exactly. How about you? What do you find?
Best way to find like their natural sales ability, just right there. They might not have that background in anything else, but if they can.
Here's what I did. I did not put them on the spot. I said I would give them a catalog and say, here's 2 pages of products. I'd give them a scenario, here's your lead, here's the questions, things you would normally want to know before you make a product recommendation. I want you to take some time with this, and I'll call you. We'll set up a time and I'll call you. So they had plenty of time to prepare. Because I wasn't interested in putting them on the spot right there. I wanted to see what they could do. Because you ever notice salespeople are like, yeah, I can sell anything. I used to Eskimos, whatever it is. Yeah. So here's what would usually happen. They would go through and they'd ask one question. And I'd say, I want a black bag. Great, how about the item number on this? They'd never get to budget, you want shoulder straps, pockets, nothing. Gave them one piece of information, they jumped on it like a shark. So I wasn't too excited about that part. If I really felt they had potential, I would give them an assignment. I'd assign them a book to read. I'd say, if you're really interested in the position, read this book and we'll talk about it, because I want to know what you got out of it. So don't be afraid to assign homework. Who uses a personality profile? Do. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Huge, huge win. I'm going to show you one that's going to blow your mind here that we used. And I'll talk about in a little bit, but I like to use the term matchbox or strong motor. I did not want a matchbox. Do you know those little cars that your kids get, you got when you were a kid? I define a matchbox as they go as far as you push them, and then they stop. And then you run up and you push them again, and they stop. I don't want a matchbox. I want somebody who's pulling me as fast as I can go, right? Make me work as hard as I can if I'm your sales manager, if you're delivering. Push me, tell me that you need to learn more. I want a motor. Anybody do reference checks? Okay. Some people think they're passé and you're not going to get any information out of them. I had one time I had the person, I had some suspicions, but everything looked fine. Had a person driving in for the offer, and I got the call. Came through 10 minutes before they're in my office, and I knew the guy well. And he said, man, he said, you want no parts of this person. She will tear your team apart. I'm thinking, oh, where do I go with this? How do I can't reveal the source. I mean, death. But it saved me. I mean, bringing somebody in there like that. Google will turn up some things, really important. Written offer letters. Who does written offer letters? Have you had an attorney review them? It's a good idea, so that it doesn't come out as a contract. I'll share something later about where I got rung up out of ignorance. Here's 2 potential questions. I love this one. I'd always do this on the phone. Is achieving sales success and developing as a sales professional important to you? How many people are going to say no when you have one? Nah, I don't really care about that. I'm happy with that. Of course not. Then I'd say, great. Tell me about the last 2 or 3 books you read on sales and the actions you took as a result. Nothing. Nothing. So if you want somebody who can fire off 2 books that they read and some things that they did, or do you want to know that you have a 35-year-old person who hasn't read any sales books in the last year that they can spit out? Is that exciting? Sounds like a matchbox to me. How many matchboxes can you push at once? Can't line 5 up and push them, can you? How about this? When I was interviewing for PNC Bank, this was kind of funny. It was like this VP and this branch manager. And the VP was a stone face the whole time. He was just a killer. And he busted out this monster question. He goes, if you were to join our team, what would your plan be to grow the territory? And how long do you think it would take to see results? And I was like, wow, that's big league. But fortunately, I had a little bit of insight, so I busted out a pretty good answer. VP, stone face. Branch manager, he's there like, yeah! And the VP looked over at him, he's like, I knew he was getting it later. He was thinking, nice poker face guy. But think about it. If you ask that question, are you going to get an understanding of their ability to think through a process to grow your territory? You going to get some understanding of that? So ask the tough questions, because we want to know what we're getting coming in. Hey, here's the personality profile I shared. This is what we used. It was not inexpensive. We would use it at the end. If somebody was really there, before we're going to make an offer, we'd do this. And they take this test online. And basically how it worked was, it would score the job, what was necessary to be successful at the job, and then grade the person against what was necessary. So everything in green means good, they're a great match. Everything in blue means okay, we're fine. The reds are big trouble. Right here, there's 3 things that are typically important for sales. Theoretical means you are willing to learn, train, read, do what you need to do to achieve a level of success. Utilitarian economic means I'm money motivated. Third means individualistic political. They want to be able to control their success. If they don't feel like they can control their success, they're not going to be happy. So do these sound like things that we would want in our salespeople? Well, look at this. A big, fat 3 on wants to be able to control their success. It's a big red flag. I can tell you that it's not perfect. How about this for a salesperson? Not very competitive.
Yeah.
Frequent interaction with others. A 2 on a scale of 10. Pretty exciting, huh? But they interviewed really well. So you figured, they had a good history, I'll take them on board. Don't do it. There's a lot of other things it measures. I brought on one that was supposed to be a killer. She was to the team. One of the things she rated highly that we didn't value was social. She was a locker room lawyer. She was getting in everybody's business, stirring up trouble. Oh, within a couple months, everybody was fired up. And she wasn't selling what we thought she would anyway. Personality profiles, really, really important. So would you pay a couple $100s for something like this to avoid a $50,000 mistake? Probably. It's not perfect, but I know that when I tried to skip through certain things and rationalize why they're going to be better, I got it. I got it in the end. Okay. I'll skim over this quick, but the 90-day period when they start is key. The orientation and the training. They need to understand the big picture. Where are you going as a company? Where do you want to get to? What are the rules of the game? What are the expectations? What's the culture? Definitely assign a peer buddy. Somebody that they can go to, maybe another sales rep who can help them. Structured training is really important. People with a lot of downtime, sitting there for 4 hours with nothing to do, not very motivated. Keep communication open, even to the extent if they're not somebody who communicates much. That's all the more important to do it. And take that temperature. How are you doing? How was your first week here? What are some things that we could do to help you better integrate here? Is there anything else you'd like to see differently? A lot of questions. The first 90 days often determines how long they're going to stay. So make sure it's a strong part. Report cards. What's that, number 5? Everybody complete the report card? Really?
From the beginning to end, even like literally they'll interview by phone, then you'll interview with the manager, then you'll go out with someone on a sales call to see if you like it, then you interview with a VP or someone higher, you're doing the personality test, your role playing, and then they get hired if you do better, you're signing it, and then you're assigned the next year. You eventually become a mentor.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
That's great. I'm sure they have better luck hiring too. I mean, they're a pretty demanding company, and they run metrics like crazy. Okay. Last hiring thought. This was a lesson learned on my part. If you're good at sales, don't sell the position. You want the position to be a match. You certainly want them to understand the opportunity, but you don't want to sell them on it. Closing on this is not a win. It has to be a good long-term match, right? I found myself sometimes slipping into a sales role as opposed to an interviewing role. Okay, cornerstone number 6, motivating goal-achieving compensation plans. What is the #1 mistake in developing sales compensation plans? What do you think? Anyone?
Overpromising.
Okay. Anyone else?
Not making them,
That would be a good one.
What did you, I'm sorry, what did you say?
not making them attainable goals.
Not having it written. That's very important too. You guys are hitting all my points that I'm going to go to. Here's what, again, this is opinion. Here's what I feel is the #1 mistake. Not aligning the compensation with the desired results you want to achieve. Let me give you the biggest example. I want a salesperson who's really going to go out there and grow the business and go after it hard. And I say, okay, what's the compensation plan? 100% salary. Is that aligned? No. I have a sales cycle in my business that's 3 to 6 months, and I want the sales rep to really invest the time in my company to learn the product and make these contacts. What's their commission? What's their structure? 100% commission. Is that in alignment? No. But yet we have it all the time. So we have to know what results we want, and then the commission should be aligned, or the compensation structure should be aligned to achieve those. So we'll go through some steps, and you've already hit them. My belief is that risk should be shared fairly. I don't believe starting somebody on 100% commission is a fair sharing of risk. Who's the risk on 100% commission? Yeah. So it has to relate to the sales cycle, has to relate to how much the incentive is, but I think we have to, if we have a longer sales cycle, we have to take some time and invest in that person to hope that they're going to invest in us. The plan is designed to mirror the desired results. So if we want to grow new business, that's a big emphasis of the rep. Maybe I had that program where I'd give them twice the commission on the new business if they went out and got it themselves. They get out, found their own lead, I'm doing business with XYZ company, I pay them twice for the first year. Because I'm growing my business there, and they're saving me the marketing costs. They went out and hunted them down. But it should mirror whatever we're trying to do. If their real focus is growing that existing client base, then the compensation should mirror that as well. If it's maintenance versus growth, and then targeting that, if we're trying to really push limits, you know, maybe they do 800, but we love if they do $1 million or 1.2, then there's kickers at the higher level. Why pay them that same commission on the growth the whole way through if what we're trying to do is drive to the high point? So the compensation should be aligned with that. Make it very clear what their role is in existing business versus new business. This is a really different animal. I shared that I think the best way is first to grow existing business, but at a certain point, we also have to get some new clients in there. Not to neglect the existing, but to bring them in. Do you think hunting and farming are two different things? Some people are good at some and not at others. So if we bring in a complete farmer and we say, you're getting paid on all new business, how's that match going to be? They're going to be dying. Because it's going to take them a while to earn the relationship. My company at the time did not do this, but I think this is important. Prices were pretty much controlled, so the profit margin was what it was. But I would definitely factor profit into the plan. Who currently factors profit into their plan? Because what happens is, let's say salesperson A sells at his job's at 35% margin, salesperson B sells them at 30. You're paying them both 10% on the revenue. You get eaten alive. The one person is creating so much more for you on profitability. The other one's killing you. So to whatever extent you can, factor profit into the plan. You know what that'll do? Stop them from discounting immediately, folding up like a cheap suit. Could you offer us a discount? Sure, I can knock 10% off my price. And think about it, if your margin's 20%, and you knock 10% off the price, just crushed your net. Crushed it by 50%. So factor profit in, there's going to be a lot less people doing that. We used to have charts, and they would say the minimum margins you could do at certain places, give them a range. So that controlled it. If they wanted to go below that, they had to come in and get permission because it was outside the comp structure. Reps must believe they have control over the results. If we put goals out there and they don't believe they can hit it, what's the likelihood that they'll hit it? Yeah, they're not going to hit it. They have to believe that they can control it. Now, if you're able to share the 5 ways with them and say, you know, if we could just take this up a little bit and this up a little bit, do you think they'd have more of a belief that it's realistic? You know, if you give them a 25% increase, but you say, if we could just tweak these a little 5%, can you give me a little 5% better? Here's how we hit it. They might be thinking, okay, I can do that, right? Same goal, just explained differently. In the same token, goals and incentives set by management has to be achievable. If 5 years in a row we've set goals and we haven't hit them, what's our credibility? Here's another year, just tacking 10% on. What are we going to do to hit it? So one of the things I coach is if we're going from here to here, what are the things that are going to be different this year that will take us from here to here? And we share them with the team. Well, we have a new assistant in here, which is going to get you more hours. This is our new product line, whatever it is. It has to be reasons why it'll go from here to here for them to believe. Plan is in writing with clear language. Who said that? Somebody said that Now I'll tell you how I got burned. The plan has to be legal. Me, being the driver that I am, and probably at that point, I don't know, 29, 30, was encouraging my sales reps to not just punch clock. In by 8, out by 5. Hey, how about give a little more? You know, some of your clients are calling you at 7:45 and you're not there, or 5:15. So they start giving a little more. There's a big difference between outside sales and inside sales at the time. Inside salespeople, compensation, that if there's wasn't more than 50% was incentive, they were hourly. And we got rung up with 6 months of OT. So that sucked. That was terrible. That was like, you know, some guys were getting $8,000 checks. That was bad. But the worst part was having to go back and figure it all out because we didn't have timesheets. So then we had to do all sorts of estimating. So my suggestion is make sure, invest a couple $100, make sure your plan is legal. Because what happened was somebody Googled something and said, hey, this isn't right. We deserve overtime. And that's where it went down. So make sure it's legal. You think any of that would happen in your organization? All right. Last cornerstone. Go ahead and do your report card.